The history item, we're going to need to keep track of the history of each item, so that's why that is there. And now, finally, we can add the fields a client can use to set the location. We will be calling this add user input fields. What this method is doing is that we will add the value items clients will be able to write to change the forecast city, which means our ensure container item and ensure value item methods will now come in handy. More specifically, ensure value item. So once you've been caught up to this point, we can start writing. Var city is going to be a value item. Now, this is also where server helper comes into play. The alt ID will be the city ID. Name, we'll just say that this is city code. Null description, although you can add whatever you want. A value type of long. Null parent folder. Null unit. This item will be writable. And not forceable, because it's just the city name. The API we're using needs a location ID. You can see this link to obtain the ID of the city you wish. So city is a long value, which can also be looked at as a string. So if the string of its value is null or empty, or its actual value is equal to 0, then we will modify that value item with modify value item value with whatever city code you decided to pick. The one being used here is a perfectly acceptable example. And now for city name, we are very closely doing the same thing. But we're using server helper dot city name ID. This can just be city name. Description can be anything. This will be a string value. No parent, no unit. It is read only, since we're not changing the name of the city. And it is not forceable. Now we can copy paste this code here, but we're dealing with a string instead of a long, so some adjustments will have to be made. We'll have the city name of an empty string, and we will tell the client that the data is uncertain. You can see that we are making the city name value item not writable, and if there is no value in the city name value item, we are setting its state to uncertain to indicate to consumers that our code hasn't yet acknowledged a change to the city value item. Now we want to add the folders and data points where we will write the current weather conditions. Following a similar approach from the prior step and leveraging those helper methods, we can add placeholders for the current conditions. So take a second to pause the video and make sure that add user input fields looks like what we have here. And after you have done that, we are going to begin with add current condition placeholders. Private void add current condition placeholder. So the current folder in our server, we are making a container item called current conditions. And we are ensuring a value item of current last update ID. We want to keep track of when something was last updated. This is going to be a datetime object that resides in the current folder, which is its parent. It is going to be read-only and not forceable because it is a timestamp. We want to obtain this data from the server, not edit it. Now, first, we have to be concerned with temperature. What we're making here is a value item representing the current temperature. It will be a value type of double, reside in the current folder, you can look at this gray block up here if you forget what the different parameters are. And in fact, that is what must have happened to me because we need a unit for temperature. I do not quite remember how to do the degrees symbol on the keyboard, but if you can, you should do that because temperature should be in degrees Celsius. We definitely want this to be a read-only value. And non-forcible. And for each value item, we also want to ensure a corresponding history item. So it'll be for helper .current temperature history ID as its alt ID. And once you've completed these steps for temperature, we need to do this for every other major value we want as necessary. This part will be sped through. Coming up next is the final piece of our setup processor, where we will add the forecast placeholders and finish the other execute subclass methods.